everybody else, and it's great. Sometimes we just don't agree. I don't think we're going away.
Well, then let's have a discussion. I mean, because obviously, I just want to make sure we're not moving in that direction.
I don't think we are.
Okay, but taxes are going up.
I don't know what taxes. We tax mining unless you're a mining corporation.
Well, I just want to make sure you're not moving to that direction, my friend. I mean,
I'm not interested in becoming California at all.
Okay, I really hope so. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
There are actually multiple people in this room who have filed affidavits of maladministration to your office and certified notarized copies due to NRS section Article 2, Section 1, and these certified copies have been turned away from your office. I would love an answer of why that is.
I have no idea what you're talking about because I don't have an office. I have an 8-to-5 day job for a year and a half outside of session. So I'm unaware. We have the Legislative Counsel Bureau, who is the legal body, the legal division of LCB, accepts service of process, accepts service regarding any lawsuits or anything like that. I would simply direct you to the LCB to get an answer to that question because I don't know the answer. I have never received anything from you or anybody else along
So you could
lines.
reach out to me maybe after this and we could possibly clear that up, or?
I don't have the answer. Director of Legislative Counsel Bureau is I think the source of the answer to that kind of process.
Because there's an address listed on the Nevada legislative site with your name on it.
A mailing address?
Yes, yours, absolutely.
We all have a mailing address in the legislative building that we're there for 120 days every other year, and the rest of the time.
So for a constituent to address a grievance between, let's say, the state and a constituent, and you speak up for the constituent, how do we address that if we can't get a hold of you?
I respond to every single one of my constituents.
That's what I heard.
Calls
That's what I heard.
and emails. Every single constituent who lives in District 8 who emails me or calls me, I respond. But if there's an affidavit issue or a legal process issue, that goes through the Legislative Counsel Bureau and the legal division of the LCB.
I appreciate you.
So we have one last question.
Well, if a person is really true, if he's somebody who really works on the behalf of the people, well, why would he essentially block me on Facebook? You can see this link right here. This is his Facebook personal page. And I asked him whether he introduced a bill to raise sales taxes. Well, as you can see right here, the page is not there. So essentially, he is lying. He is essentially giving you false information. And I think perhaps he could be sued for actually giving this wrongful information. Now, as you can see, this is the bill that I'm talking about. This is AB 309. It was introduced in the 2019 legislative session. And you can see here, Section 5 of this bill authorizes the Board of County Commissioners of each county to impose by a 2/3 vote or by the board of the majority vote of the people at a primary, general, special election for a new sales use tax at a rate of 1/4 or 1% of the gross recipients of retailers. Now, he can say, well, I did not raise your sales tax. I didn't introduce, but what he did is he gave the ability of counties to raise sales taxes. So that's some pretty shady things that's going on. Now he tells you, yeah, he's for the people. He cares about you. Look, he only has about close to 1,200 likes. He barely puts anything on any posts on Facebook. This is July 4th, Happy Independence Day. But you can see here, he barely posted anything in the entire legislative session, which ran from January to May. He barely posted anything about it. And oh yeah, I'm just expanding voting rights access, all in the name of mail-in vote. See, this is how they get elected. It's through this social justice, woke, racial justice agenda. You can see here, he has barely posted any photos. The second last one is in 2018. Hardly anything going on. He's out of touch. Now the question is, how the hell did these people get elected? Well, let's take a look at this right here. You can see here, he claimed to win by a very, very large margin. Now, obviously, if you introduce ballot harvesting, it's going to work in your favor. and he won by a margin of over 5,000 votes. Now, I know this guy, 80 Facey, I have his number. No, I'm not too much of a fan of him because he endorses the current Clark County Republican chair, which I think he's incompetent, he's just careless. He has done very little activism. It's no wonder why a lot of these events I go to, it's only me and a few other people out there speaking out because his party is very ineffective. And no, I'm not attending the meeting that's going to be coming up on the 20th of July of voting for the next chair. I don't trust any of them. That's why I tell a lot of people we need to form alternative movements. But anyway, you can see in the last election in 2018, he got fewer votes than Facey did in 2020. How does that work? There's a lot of fishiness going on. And that's why I'm very confident to see that there is going to be election audits and they're going to effectively introduce a bill to, well, or the courts may have to shut down the mail-in bill, the mail-in voting bill that was introduced for the second time. So he introduced the first one during the session for that special election, and then he said, oh, well, that worked so well, we should make it permanent. Yeah, well, if it's so great, well, then why didn't you introduce it before? Why didn't you address, well, what's the point of having absentee ballots? This is me speaking out.
I used mailed-in vote. My ballot was counted on the 7th. I think that was a little bit too late.
Yeah, exactly. They don't explain that. They just basically dodge your questions. They don't respond to what you have to say. They just walk away. Well, it's up to us, maybe the next session that they have, for us to approach them in person, have an army of people so they can be confronted. But it's not just that. A lot of you need to spread this video because if you continue to do this, you will understand that more and more of these people will get embarrassed and they won't be able to actually run for office ever again. As a matter of fact, a lot of these people can be held accountable. Look at these election results in 2016, 12,000 votes. Look at this. He got fewer votes in 18 than he did in 20. Look at this in 2014. He was defeated by a Republican, but I'm not sure about this guy. I think he was part of the opposition. You could see here, yeah, I grew up in a tough neighborhood in Compton, California. Folks, I can tell you this, that I've made this in a previous video, and I know this is going to sound very politically correct, and I know some of you may be offended by this, and YouTube may not like hearing this, but I talked about how there is some possible invisible effort to bring blacks from California into Nevada. And what's disgusting is that a lot of these blacks, many of them who voted for politicians like Maxine Waters that ruined the state, they come here once they're gentrified, and they come here and they bring the same voting habits to support Frierson, to support Spearman, Aaron Ford, Horace Ford, etc. So you have to understand, well, why did he come here? He came here because one of the reasons, either he got some kind of favoring from the Harry Reid machine, or he got essentially priced out of the market. We must reduce the number of foreclosures, plummeting home values. Yeah, well, why aren't you addressing this anymore? Why aren't these people in Congress that you support are addressing this anymore? You're not even talking about the overvalued housing market. Look at their campaign donors. MGM Resorts. Now, they haven't made one in 18 and 20. Why do you think that is? $14,000. Now, I also forgot to ask him, which I forgot to ask a lot of things because I kind of blanked out, then why aren't you raising taxes for casinos? Well, this explains everything. And as you know, I told him in the entire audience that Jim Murren not only admits that we changed the laws, but he profited from this pandemic. He resigned just before the pandemic. He was part of the COVID task force. So this explains everything, and that's why they're not getting the tax hike. It's the miners. And by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets donors from the miners. National Association of Realtors, Police Protection Association and Civilian Employees, Title Max. Oh, these are, I think, probably these payday loans. The Justice Association. Look at this. MGM Mirage. Caesars Entertainment. Here's another MGM Mirage. Harris. See, this is who they work for. This is why I keep telling you folks, Robin Williams, he mentioned very well, they need to wear NASCAR jerseys to show who they work for. They pump the social justice agenda. They get heavily amounts of contributions from the unions too. A lot of votes. It's a dirty, disgusting political machine. And it's up to you to make sure that you spread this video. You put signs, you put flyers, you do everything you can to expose these people so much that they get embarrassed and they would never, ever even thinking about running for re-election or any type of office anytime soon. And by the way, the heart of the problem is Clark County because they are really the gatekeepers. And I'll talk about that in the future later on.
I represent my district. My district elected me to represent them. I also, as speaker, represent my caucus, who elected me to the Assembly Democratic Caucus. But I also represent the entire Assembly, which means I lead the Assembly, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or anything in between. It's my job to make sure that you have a rewarding experience, that you have an opportunity to represent your districts, be heard, and be treated with respect and professionalism. And I take it seriously. So I start every session with a olive branch across the aisle because I believe that's how we lead. And we all go up there to do our best. We don't always agree with each other, let alone with members in the community. We do the best that we can to try to advance policies we believe moves Nevada in the good direction, independent of partisanship. So I just want to put that out there because these folks have the same sacrifice that I do, and I have to really appreciate it. A couple of big bills, obviously this past session, it was overdue time to have mining come forward with a meaningful contribution specifically to public education. We've been trying to do this for at least 20 years, and we finally got about $170 million from mining specifically for public education, and another $140 million, thank you. And another $140 million of existing mining revenue that was going into the general fund that was earmarked for education. That's $310, on average, $1 million per biennium that's going to be dedicated directly to public education, and I was particularly proud of that. I'll also say I was proud of the work that we did on social justice, and there were a couple of things that we all played a part, but a couple of things that we were able to do, we were able to require that not only do law enforcement have to have implicit bias training in their annual training, but they also need to do it at the screening level. So when you're hiring, what we heard is law enforcement saying, we don't want that at Apples either. And so when you're hiring law enforcement, if you screen for bias at that point, then maybe we can avoid some of the problems by not hiring those bad eggs in the first place. I also am particularly proud, these are some small bills that I think are going to make a big difference, of having civilians added to the Police Officer Standards and Training Commission, the Post Commission. It was all law enforcement, and you don't see change when you surround yourself with people that have the same background as you. So now folks like you, folks with different backgrounds can be on the Post Commission to make sure that we as a community have a say in how police officers are trained and how police officers are hired. And so I thought that was a huge thing. I don't want to take Ms. Brown May's thunder on one bill that she graciously offered to help me out with, but we also, I think, from a community perspective, finally were able to decriminalize trafficking. Finally we were able to say we don't believe that it's a responsible use of taxpayer dollars to put somebody in jail over a traffic violation. Other states have done it, other municipalities in Nevada have done it, and not only have they not realized loss in revenue, but they've actually realized the savings. So we are being more responsible with taxpayer dollars. We're making sure that we get that money, but we're not wasting that money by having folks spend a weekend in jail and get credit for time served anyway. We all want to work with our law enforcement community. I think this session reflected an effort to work together to try to say, look, we are not going to villainize you. Let's find some common sense ways to better police our communities. These were measures that they came to the table and supported. And so I'm particularly proud of that effort. And I think that there's some other things that my colleagues have worked on, but I will stop at that point and stay hopefully within another 5 minutes.
4.3, great.
And thank you all for being here. It's community engagement that drives it. We have a citizen legislature, so we do our job based on what we hear from our constituents. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Why
people are evil.
Suddenly going to Miller? Sure.
Legislature over the course of the last several sessions, whether they're due to Corona or COVID or my location versus your location. I have a question about how come it is we're looking at these huge important bills at 2 o'clock in the morning. Is there any way that you have the ability to stop disenfranchising people who have to go to work tomorrow, who truly care about these bills, from having to watch them on YouTube or whatever framework you guys put together at 3 o'clock in the morning? This is beyond ridiculous at this point in time. What are you going to do to fix that for the special session on redistricting and any going forward sessions, because it's not fair?
I will address that really briefly. What's not fair is that we have a 120-day session every other year, so.
Do something to fix it, you're the guy.
Well, I'm going to address that question. We have put before the people several times annual sessions. We are doing a disservice to our constituents by trying to manage a complicated state budget with resorts and tourism and mining and gaming in 120 days every other year. We are operating as a territory aspiring to become a state when we operate that way, and we absolutely should expand the time that the legislature has with the business so that we don't have to go all day or all night. I will also say that indirectly because of COVID, we were able to adopt Zoom meetings and have more Southern Nevada participation than we have ever had. So it's not ideal. I would love, we looked at Oregon, we looked at other states that went to annual sessions, even a shorter session during the off year, so that we don't have to cram everything into 120 days. And until we do that, we're going to continue to do the best we can with 120 days. But I agree with you.
Well, it seems to me,
I would agree with you. It does a disservice to constituents to have to force 2 years worth of policy in 120 days. I believe we have to do something about it. I have tried twice, and I believe we're going to try a third time. It's in the Constitution, and the voters need to engage, and folks like you need to educate your friends and neighbors to vote for us having more of an opportunity as legislators to use the time we have to advocate for our districts.
And
Isn't it not true that you
I'm
calendar-
sorry, ma'am, I'm sorry.
As a follow-up,
No, I'm sorry, we don't have time, we have to.
Questions. One is like each one of you to say whether you support vaccine mandates for public schools, for universities, and companies. You support that. Number two, I have a small business. About a year and a half ago, got robbed at gunpoint twice in 2 weeks. And Metro did a great job. And this kid was 17 and a half years old. And at the end of the day, he got 6 months at summer camp at Elko and fireworks. Is that appropriate punishment for people committing violent crimes with guns? What legislation have you proposed or are you, did you pass to fight violent crime in this mountain? It is through the real violent crime, homelessness. We see needles all the time dropped everywhere. The murder rate is up 13% in this county alone. What are you guys doing to fight violent crime, guns? Because I know you work for, I believe, the county DA's office. Sorry? Okay, so the DA's office, the first thing they drop is a gun enhancement. The first thing. Even though all you guys are anti-gun, the first thing that's being dropped is the gun enhancement. So what can you guys do as law enforcement, as legislatures to pass laws to fight violent crime? Because all I hear is concern for the criminals. I don't hear much concern for the victims who have the guns in their faces, or people's homes being robbed. I know you decriminalized that and called it property crime when people break into homes and burglarize homes. So what are you going to do to fight violent crime? The vaccine.
Well, you said you want to hear from everybody.
Yes.
I don't support the state legislature forcing that. I think that should be locally decided and by business decided. As far as crime, I just think it's wrong. I don't think you're breaking into a home with a weapon is considered not violent. Is that violent crime? I've been working on and off in criminal law both as a prosecutor and public defender for over a decade. We have worked very hard to focus on non-violent crime, but we also